What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to our podcast. This is Bench Warmers, and here's your boy Lo, and my partner in crime, Jono. Tell him what's up, Jono.
What up, everybody? Episode 3, bringing the excitement, bringing the heat, bringing the fire. Draft day's coming up. Tom Brady lost. We got a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. This we're gonna be covering reaction to the Bucs Sunday night game against the Saints. We're gonna talk a little bit about the NBA offseason and a little draft preview. We're even gonna discuss the impact of the big name players due to the short offseason. We know that the NBA season is officially starting December 22nd. Adam Silver pulled through. We're going to have some games over the Christmas break, New Year's break. So we're excited about that. We're going to discuss that on this show. But I know that as you guys are listening, the elections are now over. We just want to thank to everyone who's been watching and following our podcast to go out and voted. You exercise your right, your civil duty to be a voice. And things have not gone as smoothly. We're still in this. We're still going through this headache, but nonetheless, I just want to encourage everyone to continue to be the high moral citizens that we are. We got to focus on the things that unite us and not the things that divide us moving forward. So we just want to say, shout outs to everybody who took the time to voice their concerns and exercise their right through votings. But we're going to start off the show, John. We're going to jump off with our show today, and we're going to discuss and get your reaction to the Bucs performance Sunday night against the Saints. I know that was the most anticipated game, at least for me, to watch this past weekend. I will tell you, I'm a Patriots fan, as I mentioned before. Tom Brady is the GOAT. We both reside in Florida, so there's a little part of us that kind of looks at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers teams and Jacksonville teams and kind of see what they're doing, because they are in our home state. And, the matchup against Breeze and Tom Brady, we've been wanting, at least I wanted it, for the Super Bowl for the last 4 years, and it just never happened. So you can imagine when Tom Brady signed with the Buccaneers, bro, you're going to get that matchup twice a year. Probably the two greatest quarterbacks that we have seen in our lifetime play against each other. And everyone deemed the Buccaneers to be Super Bowl contenders. Jono, after what you just saw this weekend, are they pretenders or contenders, man?
I'm ready for this. This is the content that I am ready for. They are still contenders, right? I mean, This is what we're going into week 10. They played week 9, first game with Antonio Brown. He's got to get his feet wet. He got to understand the offense a little better. Did I expect the game to be as much of a blowout with the Saints coming on top?
They got waxed, bro. Brady,
you're right.
I hate talking about my man Brady, but he looked like a 43-year-old quarterback, bro.
He looked terrible.
This is my frustration. He looks like an above average quarterback, right? And then the next moment, he just looks like he needs to retire and give it up. But I don't know what happened, man. And so I'm after seeing that debacle, you're telling me that they're still contenders to win a Super Bowl?
I mean, they're going to make the playoffs. They may not win the NFC South because the Saints have a 2-game lead on them, just if it comes down to a tiebreaker. But they're going to make the playoffs. And once Brady's in the playoffs, we know what happens, right? I mean, he's going to get this team right. He's going to get the offense right. Antonio Brown has 6 more weeks together with the offense. The defense is going to get right. They've got too many studs on defense to let a game like this or this past Sunday night happen again.
But I do think the defense that gave up all them points.
It was terrible. No, you're right. It was terrible. But I mean, you game plan different in the playoffs compared to the regular season. You take away certain things. But and let me remind you, I mean, Michael Thomas, it was his first game back too. So it was a game of stars. And while all the focus was on the Bucs, the Saints did what they were supposed to do. And in my opinion, although it was a blowout, they did it quietly. And what I mean by that is they weren't expected to win. Nobody picked them to win. Everybody picked the Bucs. Everybody picked AB and Tom Brady to reunite and have this fantastic relationship, but it just didn't come to fruition. right? Let's see what happens next week. Let's see what happened in week 11 when, I don't know their schedule, but let's just see.
But this is a game they needed to win. They were in Tampa. It wasn't like they was in New Orleans that they got waxed. They got waxed in Tampa. This is the one thing I've always said, it's that O-line. If that O-line cannot protect Tom Brady, Tom Brady is not going to be effective. And Tom Brady was getting pressured all throughout the night. You need to give him time to be able to, just carve the defense up. You don't give him time, he ain't going to be able to do anything. And this is where I had my little hesitations concerning AB. You have so much talent on the offensive end that how are you going to be able to effectively distribute the ball to everyone, right? That's right. So Mike Evans hasn't been receiving the ball, right? Why is he only getting targeted, 7-8 times a game? Gronkowski, are you, that's his go-to guy. You have so much talent, and Goodwin, I don't know why he's playing. He's really playing with one hand. You could tell that he couldn't really grasp the ball with his finger and all
tape job.
But bro, they only rush the football 4 times.
Wow.
The entire game. Why would you not? That team, in my opinion, they had to be a good, solid defensive team, a ground team with a lot of play action that allows Tom Brady to only need to pass the ball 20 to 24 times, give you 260 yards, cut down on the turnovers in order for them to be effective. They got too much talent on the offensive end for them not to put up numbers. But at the end of the day, because you have such not just great talented receivers, you got an AB who has taken a year off. He's rusty. You're incorporating him into the offense, and Brady wants to give him the ball. And sometimes he force feeds it. And so I don't think they're contenders, man. I think they're more pretenders. I know what you're trying to say in regards to when he gets to the playoffs, but he played with an organization in New England for 20 years. There was a lot of similarities. You can't translate that over to the NFC South where he's playing against better competition or better quarterbacks is a better way to, to put it. So on the talent side, they should be contending. But man, after that debacle, bro, I don't know, man. That was that.
Well, let me ask you this, Lo, and maybe this might play a factor into the game specifically, and just what the Bucs are doing. So I was reading a stat about Brady this season alone. He has thrown more deep ball passes than the last 5 years combined. I think it was a very staggering amount. It was like 60% of the passes he takes are 20 yards plus. Does that play a factor in his, in his age, in his career? I mean, you've watched Brady closer than I have, in his entire career in New England. And the last 5 years of his career with Josh McDaniels as the OC, it's been a lot of short passes, play action to the middle, probably more passes, 15 yards or less. Quick releases that's being done. So, is this a factor for Brady and his receiving core? I mean, is Byron Leftwich calling too many plays that require him to throw the ball, a little bit further than what he's used to?
And again, it goes back to the offensive play calling. Do you want your 45-year-old quarterback, 43? How old is he? 43, 44? He wants to play to 45. He's 43. All right. How often do you want your 43-year-old quarterback slinging the football? Even in New England, he was most effective working within the lines. He was never as accurate. He never had a deep threat outside of Randy Moss anybody could throw to Randy Moss and he's going to catch it. But I want to say, I just pulled this up. Tom Brady was the NFL's 4th best quarterback in this category in 2019, as noted. And Brady had an expected completion rate of 31.4% on all his deep passes, but he actually completed 38.9% of them. So the numbers, he's not really accurate down the field as you would like. So why are you? That's not his game. He's never been a guy who passes outside of the numbers. He's always works within the numbers. That's why I said I saw a lot of deep threats on this team, but who's going to be the slot runner, right? Who's going to be able to work the middle of the field and get the offensive going? But there's no excuse. There shouldn't be. Listen, that offensive game plan, the fact that they didn't run the ball, more than 4 times, it's ridiculous. I mean, which Buck team are we going to see? Are we going to see the ones that whooped up on Green Bay or the one that gets stumped by New Orleans? We don't know. But
and I think that's a good point going forward, right? I mean, when you have, and you mentioned this earlier, when you have all this talent, you've got to find an identity for the talent, right? You've got to find an identity for your team. Are you going to be a deep threat team? Are you going to be a play action, play within the numbers team like Tom Brady has excelled in his entire career? Or are you going to be a West Coast team? Yeah, I mean, I think the identity of the Bucs currently is just a little bit misinformed. Based off what we see, I mean, the talent is amazing, right? Like we mentioned before, the receivers, the running back, offensive line is a question mark just because they're building that up this year. But trying to figure out what kind of offensive team they're gonna be moving forward, and we talked about having a window of opportunity in our previous episodes, and you only got a 2-year window with Brady, so you kind of have to figure that out now. You can't keep.
Yeah, finish your thought.
Yeah, you can't keep figuring out what works best for Brady, what works best for the team. If I'm honest, we know what works best for Brady. We've seen it the last 20 years, right? Have a system, have guys buy into the system, and you excel that way. When you try to have Brady do a little bit too much, and to your point about the deep passes, that's when he's not his best.
Right.
So
it's just
trying to find
never been a part of his game. Can he throw the deep ball? Yes. Has he ever relied on his game to throw 7 to 8 to 9 deep balls a game? No, that's never been his MO. He works between the lines and the numbers. And so for me, you need to solidify that offensive line. Tom Brady is above average game manager, right? He's not elite anymore. And you can't have him passing the ball 40 times a game at 43 years old. Why did you get what's the old boy's name from Jacksonville? Fournette. Why did you get Fournette to be a running back if you're not going to utilize him, right? Why you got McCoy, if you're not going to utilize him? Like, you got to utilize these running backs and make the game simpler for him, where he's throwing 20 to 24 times a game and getting you 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and working the ground game, because that O-line is what's going to be the demise of that offensive, talent that they have. Brady needs time. So you said they're pretenders. I think they're you said they're contenders. I think that they're pretenders. I don't really think.
I think I'm going to recant on my statement, and I just pulled up the schedule, and this is why it doesn't get any easier for Tampa. I mean, they play the Panthers next week. The following week, they play the Rams, and then the Chiefs, and then the Vikings. And it doesn't get easier, with all due respect to these teams, it doesn't get easier until week 13, where they play the Falcons, the Lions, and the Falcons again. So, we're looking at, we're going into week.
Falcons have been playing better football the last few weeks.
Right. So we're going into some unpredictable weeks for the Bucs, and I'm thinking that they may not be as much of a contender as I thought they were.
So let me ask you this: what's the record for the Bucs right now? 5-3.
I believe they are 5-3.
All right, and what do you think will be the record with the remaining schedule that they have?
So the Bucs are 6-3, and they have Carolina, which I think they should win. They'll win that one. They have the Rams, which is a Monday night game, national televised game.
Okay,
that's a toss-up. The Chiefs, I don't think they win the Chiefs. I think they beat the Vikings. I think they split one with the Falcons. I think they might lose the first one or lose the last one, but I do think they beat the Lions. So I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think in 7 games, I think they go 4-3.
So that will leave them 10-6.
10-6.
Which is about where I had them. I said either 11-5, 10-6.
Right, which still is a playoff team. So we'll see.
Right. So okay, Jono somewhat thinks they're contenders, maybe not. I think they're pretenders. You got to.
We'll see what seeding they have in the playoffs, and then we can revisit.
For sure. Yeah. No, I agree. So listen, one of the things that we're excited about, we've been talking about this before the show began, is the NBA offseason, the draft preview. I will have to say to all of the listeners and watchers, Jono is a college basketball enthusiast. He loves amateur sports. As I mentioned before, he's a JV basketball coach for Timber Creek. Not Timber Creek. Did I get that right?
That's right. Timber Creek, baby, home of the
Timber
Wolves.
Creek. Yeah, it's his alma mater. So he's in this field. For me, I love to watch more professional. But we was looking at the NBA offseason. We're like, man, this is going to be a interesting offseason for a number of reasons. Not only the NBA draft is coming up here soon, but officially we're going to be starting December 22nd. Now, is there any word as to what they're going to be doing in regards to travel? Nothing like that. Is it going to be multiple bubbles? Have you heard anything?
What I'm reading, what I'm hearing is that there's going to be a lot of games played within regions. I don't think there's going to be a lot of cross-country games. So like the Lakers and Knicks, I doubt we see that. I doubt we see any team from the West Coast playing any team on the East Coast. What I do think should happen is I think that, West Coast teams should play West Coast teams. East Coast teams should play East Coast teams. Kind of how they do it in baseball, right? And then you have interleague play every now and then. And I think this is just for the safety of the guys. I mean, they're not going to do a bubble like they did in Orlando for the regular season. Maybe they do it for the playoffs, just depending on where COVID is, next summer. But, you'll see a lot of the LA teams, playing each other a lot and teams out in Texas playing each other a lot, which just from a travel standpoint, it makes sense.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see if anybody can pull it off. Is David Stern for sure. I know that LeBron James made mention that he would like to see fans in the stands. I know he tweeted the picture of when Notre Dame upset at the Clemson. He's like, "Oh, fans can storm the field, but we can't have fans in the stand." I'm like, no, neither one is right. Like, I don't know what point you're trying to make. But if we're ever going to get out this pandemic, please, people, wear your mask, social distance. We want to get back to normal. So anyway, that's just my little pitch there for everybody. But this offseason, man, it's going to be unique because for those for the Miami Heat of the world and the Lakers of the world, they just came off a championship run, and now they only have less than 2 months to prepare for a new season. We talked about this in our previous show. Does LeBron take a month off? I said he doesn't need to take any time off. Like, at the end of the day, they all got a 4-month break, in between the regular season and that bubble. They didn't do a lot of traveling. It wasn't a lot of wear and tear, so I don't want to hear a lot of these complaining. But yeah, having this offseason being one of the shortest in professional sports, I don't know how this is going to play out. I think the teams who have already came from the bubble are going to be a little bit more sharp in regards to X's and O's, and the teams like, the Bulls, the Knicks, who else didn't make the bubble? The Hornets of the world, Golden State of the world. It's going to be a lot. They had a longer time period off, so you might see a little bit more sloppy basketball from them.
Definitely rusty for sure.
Yeah. So this is going to be an interesting season. This being, as I mentioned, the shortest off season in professional sports. So what are your thoughts on this upcoming shortened off season, and what do you expect for this upcoming season?
Well, I mean, like you mentioned, you got less than 2 months before the season starts, December 22nd for the first game. It's a tough situation for a lot of free agents. Gallinari, to name a few, or to name one, the guy that I think is probably the most valuable free agent right now. I don't think you're going to get your money's worth. I feel like a lot of GMs, because the salary cap is not as high as it's going to be, because all the TV deals aren't being seen all the way through. Truthfully, it sucks for some free agents who are looking to get their market value. I think teams like the Bucs, who need to make some moves, aren't going to make the moves necessary, because you're only going to have 2 months to try to figure out what's best for your team. This draft, and we'll get to this here in a little bit, is very weak. So you can't really build in the draft, and you can't find talent in the draft that'll help you win right away. So I think the offseason is a wash. And, just to be honest, I think not a lot of teams are going to take it as serious and just kind of go all in 2021 in the hopes that the season is fully completed and nothing stops it from being completed. And when it ends next June, you'll have an entire off season as you would a regular or normal NBA season. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, it's going to be curious. I'm going to be curious to see the offseason moves as well. Yeah, I'll be very curious. The NBA draft, as you mentioned, I'm not really excited about it. I know that the top 3 guys that I know for sure is LaMelo Ball, James Wiseman from Memphis, and Anthony Edwards from Georgia. Outside of that,
yeah, I have no idea. And truthfully, outside of that, I mean, there's always that one guy in the draft that's a secret, right? And normally comes in the later rounds, 15 down or whatever the case may be. But when you look at this draft and from 5 years out, you're going to look at it and honestly, in my opinion, it's going to be one of the worst drafts that we've had in a long time. And
so you're already predicting this to be a draft bust, like not a good draft at all?
I mean, you just don't have a lot of star-studded talent. I mean, outside of Anthony Edwards, who I think should be the for sure number 1 pick, you don't have any stud. I think Wiseman will fall to a situation with Golden State, and we'll get to this in a minute. I think he'll fall to, that kind of environment where he'll see success because the team is already successful. But there's no LeBron James, there's no Dwayne Wade, there's no Carmelo Anthony in this draft. I mean, this isn't 2003 where arguably that's probably one of the best drafts ever compared to 1996 with
class
Kobe
of 03 represent.
But I think this plays into the offseason like we mentioned. I mean, when you can't build around the draft, if you don't have draft picks or you don't have money to spend or money to trade around, you kind of look at the draft and it's like, we'll just get the best available player and build them up. And to be honest, man, we see this a lot in the draft, right? When a one and done guy or a 2-year guy, declares for a draft early, gets picked in the later rounds and spends, the next 3 to 4 years in the G League trying to develop. And I think we'll see that a lot here with a lot of the guys that come out.
All right, so let's focus a little bit on the draft preview then, because I know the offseason, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we conclude our show today. But draft preview, I know the top 5 picks. We got it going to Minnesota, Golden State, Charlotte, Chicago, and Cleveland. Now, you mentioned that there's some rumors that, just based on the current structure, we don't know what's going to take place in regards to the rumor mill at the moment. We'll talk about that here in a second. But Minnesota, some draft experts have Anthony Edwards going to Minnesota, LaMelo Ball going to Golden State, James Wiseman going to Charlotte, and Chicago picking up Onyeka Okongwu, and then Cleveland picking up Obi Toppin. Who is this Onyeka? Who is this guy? I don't even.
I believe that's the guy from Southern California. He's a power forward. The guy's super athletic.
Okay. I see, because he's USC, we don't get to watch a lot of these games on the West Coast. But you said that there's some rumors that the Pistons are wanting to trade up for the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah, man. I'm the last couple things that I've read and I've seen the Pistons and OKC talk about wanting to move up in the draft and try to get either in the top 5 or the top 3. Obviously, everybody wants that number 1 pick. Everybody wants a guy like Anthony Edwards or LaMelo Ball. Those 2 guys right now, and I'm going to exclude James Wiseman here in a second, but those 2 guys right now probably have the most star-studded talent in the draft. So it makes sense why guys want to move up and pick those 2 individuals. What I'm seeing right now, and this is just off of Bleacher Report, they are they've reported and obviously projected, because nothing's set in stone, that OKC will make a trade with Minnesota, and it'll include quite a few draft picks and some players to move up to number 1 and pick LaMelo Ball. Now, do I think that's best for their organization? I mean, they just hired a brand new coach. He was an assistant coach last year to take over the number 1 pick and to get LaMelo Ball. To me, it's shaping up the entire franchise. If they do that, if this projection bolds true, if they do get the number 1 overall pick and pick LaMelo Ball, this has to include their point guard, Shai Alexander. This also means that Chris Paul has to be on the move as well, and it now becomes LaMelo Ball's team.
So they don't keep Alexander that trade?
That's their projection. I mean, the number one pick is always valued high, right? So you have to give to get. If I'm Minnesota, I'm not just giving up the number one pick and not getting back valuable players.
Right.
You gotta look at it too. Minnesota is in a rebuilding phase. They traded Wiggins, they traded for D'Lo, and now D'Lo and Cat is the 1-2 punch. You got to start building around them too. You got to start getting guards who can create, guards who can shoot off the ball or spot up and shoot. You got to start having guys that can fill up the lane. Fill up positions that can play off of Cat and D'Lo.
And if I'm a GM, which I'm not, I'm just a bench warmer talking my junk, talking my talk. But like in this starless studded draft, I would hate to have the number one draft pick because
which is why Minnesota is looking to trade down. Yeah, which is exactly why
I would rather
looking to trade down.
Be in Golden State's position and just like whoever you pick, we'll just pick the second best option. And they will never look at us as making the bad choice, right?
Yeah.
So Golden State needs a big man. So I would even try to make a play for LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards. You have Wiggins at the moment currently constructed. You need a big man who can, defend and stretch the court a little bit. But James Wiseman reminds me a lot of this kid from Sacramento. He solid player, but he's not an all-star. Why does his name escape me? Huh?
Marvin Bagley?
Yes.
Yeah. Shout out to Duke, Marvin Bagley. He was the number 2 overall pick a couple years ago as well.
And that's probably who you're going to end up getting, that type of player, if I'm Golden State. So if the rumors are true, I don't see that making sense for a Pistons team. But currently constructed, I'm just not excited about the NBA draft. I think I'm more excited about the potential trades that might take place. And I think we'll talk about that here right now. But before we do that, let's quickly jump. We're going to talk quickly, stop talking about the draft preview. We already discussed the top 5 picks and who's going to who they have potentially lined up to pick, in the number 5 slots, the top 5 players with Minnesota, Golden State, Charlotte, Chicago, and Cleveland. And we'll talk about that here as we conclude. But I'm curious to know your thoughts. What is your impact on the big name players due to the short offseason? The LeBron James of the world, Giannis's of the world, James Harden. What do you think this is going to be? What kind of impact do you think this is going to be for these guys?
I don't think it's going to be much. I mean, as much as we all complain about the kind of work that we might do, as our careers, at first these guys are probably going to be like, oh man, I've got to start my season back up shorter than expected. So my routine might be a little bit off, but once they get going, it's just going to be playing regular basketball. I think the load management thing is going to be an issue. And, I'm curious to see how that gets treated throughout the season. I know Kawhi Leonard is a big load management guy. LeBron has never missed a game, due to load management. He's been hurt. But I think some teams are going to try to take advantage of the short offseason too. And like you mentioned earlier, teams are a little bit more sharp than guys that are rusty. When you have a short season, you got to get off to a good start, right? So teams like the Bucs and the Lakers and the Heat, guys that just came off playing should feel like they have an advantage start December, to get off to a good start. I can't imagine a team like Golden State who haven't played together since the 2019 finals to come out the gates and have, a remarkable start.
It's funny you say that because I mean, you had Stephen A. barking on ESPN that they're going to be the ones who are going to contend to beat the Lakers.
And they will.
I maybe the second half of the season, but they're going to have to get their feet wet, man. And I
Absolutely.
don't, unless it's some significant trades and clear, shore up that bench. That's what really allowed Golden State to compete for championship. It wasn't merely just the amazing play of Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, but also that bench was one of the best benches you had in the NBA. It was just
correct,
loaded. So, I like I said, I think we talked about this earlier in our segment. you're going to see a lot of sloppy basketball for teams who have been off for the last 9-10 months. And for those who just came out the bubble, you're going to see them play with a little bit more sharp, load management, not especially those who had a, crazy offensive run like the Lakers did. And I don't see Jimmy Butler wanting to take any load management. He's going to go in.
Yeah, I can't see that.
But I'm curious to see how these players react, how they're going to adjust again, because now this is another adjustment. Now they're traveling within certain bubbles and regions. If that's how it's going to play out, not, no traveling. Are they going to have fans? If they do, is it going to be limited fans? Based on how things are going here in Orlando, I expect fans to be in the audience just because that's what the beloved governor will like to see. So anyway, we're not gonna go down that road, but nonetheless, I'm curious to see, the biggest ones who have been talking a lot has been LeBron, but at the end of the day, they wanted to push it to January. We got a December 22nd All-Star, and we're going to conclude here with what our expectations are for the 2021-2022 season. So a lot of rumors, a lot of, as we just spoke about the draft night, who's going to go number one. But what are your expectations for the 21-22 NBA season, John? I just got this as before you answer that question report. They have the Hawks involved in the Drew Holiday that would include the number 6 pick.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, I don't know how that makes sense for. Yeah. Drew Holiday is a stud. I just don't see how this makes. Huh?
I like Drew Holiday. I think he's one of the most underrated guards in the league.
Well, it's funny because all the players, when they ask that question, who do you think is the most underrated player? All of the basketball players, Drew Holiday.
Yeah. that was I mean, and it's true. I mean, remember he was an all-star with Philly many years ago, and then was involved in a couple different trades, and he's played his role in New Orleans and all defensive teams, and I mean, continue to play at a high level. He's in a very loaded West Coast conference, and he still produces. I mean, if I'm Atlanta, I don't know if I make a trade for Drew Holiday. I think it takes a step back off of Trae Young's development and him taking over a team. Because to be honest, there's probably the youngest team in the league. And if you bring a Drew Holiday onto that team, everybody's going to look to him. He's going to be the leader. When it comes to offense and things like that, you run your stuff around Trae Young anyway. I'd just be very curious to see how that works.
You're only making that trade if you're trying to make a push for the playoffs. You're trying to get that.
and they have reported that they're trying to. Now every team is trying to make a push to the playoffs. Let's be honest. Are they ready to do that? No, they're not. They don't have a solidified, offense. Everything runs through Trae Young, which I think he's a great player. But when it comes to having that secondary option, they don't have that. They have a bunch of young guys trying to fill.
Here's your argument, though, because you said if they're only going to be playing East Coast teams, are only going to play East Coast teams. Outside of Milwaukee, who else? Miami. Who's another top 4 contender? Toronto, who I don't think they're gonna, and who? And Brooklyn.
Brooklyn. Yep.
Outside of that, who do you have?
Well, you got to still fill out the bottom 4, right? So last year,
I forgot about Philly. My apologies, Philly. Shout out to Philly.
Orlando made the playoffs the last 2 years.
But other than that, I mean, do you not see Atlanta making at least the 8th spot?
I mean,
Boston. I forgot about Boston.
It's hard to say. I don't think they have enough to make the 8th spot. If they're going to be the 8th best team in the league, they have to be better than Orlando. Orlando for the last 2 years have been the best the 8th best team in the East. That's right. Excuse me. They have to be better than Orlando. Are they better than Orlando? No, they're not. I don't think so. I think they have a couple years to get those young guys to fill those roles. And to become good, and if they do trade for Drew, then maybe it does make them the 8th best team in the league. But I can't see it. I can't see it happening.
Okay. All right. That was breaking news as we were talking, and I just got that notification. But your expectation for the 22 season?
Yeah, well, I mean, it starts next week in the draft, right? I expect Anthony Edwards to go number 1 if Minnesota holds that pick. If they don't hold that pick, then I expect LaMelo Ball to go number 1. I think it'll be toss up between those two ball players. And to be honest, man, I really hope Minnesota keeps the pick because Anthony Edwards has expressed his interest in playing in Minnesota and, being that third guy next to D'Lo and Cat. So whenever you got a guy like that who can, create his own shot, who can score off the dribble, and is just super athletic, you've got to take a chance on him. Especially
so
when
then
you're
if he
trying
goes
to
number
build up.
1, I think Wiseman goes number 2 for Golden State.
Wiseman goes number 2 no matter what. I can't see. I know I said this before, but if Wiseman is available at number 2 and LaMelo Ball is available, I think Golden State picks James Wiseman over LaMelo Ball, and I do think that it drops LaMelo Ball either down to Charlotte or Chicago, and if he is available in number 4, then he goes there. I can't see him dropping out of the top 3.
Melo going to Chicago. How do I feel about that if that would happen?
Yeah, how
I don't
do you
see
feel
Charlotte
about that
passing
as a
out on
fan?
LaMelo Ball though. They need a point guard. Oh no, Terry Rozier. He's not really a starting caliber point guard, but you pay him so much. Is he going to come off the bench?
Remember, they played Devontae Graham a lot last year. And
he's an off guard.
Right. Well, I don't know if Melo will be on-ball guard or off-ball guard in the league. I know he's played majority of his career so far as an on-ball guard. But it's going to be interesting to see where he fits in this league. He still has a lot of development to do. And he comes with baggage. He comes with his dad. He comes with the Ball family, and they already have, in my opinion, they already have that reputation from,
and MJ won't tolerate none of that foolishness, bro.
MJ's not gonna.
He will play LaMelo Ball's daddy 1-on-1 and shut him up. Oh, what's it for?
Yeah.
All right. So the expectations for this season starts with the NBA draft. I concur. I think that rounds up the top 4. Anthony Edwards for sure. Wiseman at number 2. Ball at 3. And I think, Bulls are in a tough position because we don't need more forwards or centers, but we're going to have to settle for either Toppin or this kid, Onuka from USC. So we'll be curious to see. But after that, the trade rumors has it that they got Chris Paul going to Phoenix, my brother.
Phoenix.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Oh, great fit. I mean, Devin Booker and Chris Paul in the backcourt, I think that is, outside of Clay and Steph and, Dame and McCollum, it's got to be top 5 backcourt in the NBA. I mean, to have a guy who can lead a team the way Chris Paul can and a guy who can score at will like Devin Booker can, I mean that's just the perfect setting. And their center DeAndre Ayton, he's developing. He's in the bubble he averaged 20 and 10 just like he did his rookie year. So he's coming to his he's coming to his own. Kelly Oubre is coming to his own as well as a small forward. So they've got a great future. They've got a great coach. And if they do trade up in the draft, which is something that they're trying to do as well, I think it benefits them from a trade standpoint, from other teams. I read a trade with, Detroit and Phoenix where Phoenix trades the number 7 pick to Detroit for Luke Kennard, which means that Phoenix just gets better from a shooting standpoint and just spreads the floor a little bit more for Booker to work. And if they do get CP3, for him to work on pick and roll. So I'm excited to see what Phoenix can do. I think they'll be a playoff team this year, whether it's the 8 seed or 7 seed. They were very close last year. But I think they made that jump in the bubble.
They had a phenomenal run in the bubble, went undefeated. And with Chris Paul there, they definitely scratched. Do they make the playoffs? That means
I do. I think they make the playoffs, and it'll probably be an 8th seed. It'll probably be a 7th seed. It won't be anything in the top 4.
Memphis will make it then?
Memphis is still developing. I mean, they're young. I like Ja Morant. They have a good young core as well. But I think when they traded away guys like Jay Crowder, I think it took them a step back. I think it took them, it didn't have, or they don't have that toughness, the defensive presence that Jay Crowder provided. And sometimes you need that veteran presence. And, I'm very curious to see where they go with this draft and where they go in the offseason, because they are going to have some money to spend. But do they spend it this year or do they wait for next year is the question. And I think that's the question for a lot of teams.
I think Memphis will regress. I think New Orleans will get better. And if Phoenix could definitely make that trade for Chris Paul, yeah, I'll even go as far as I can see them being a 5th seed in the West, just based on that talent alone. You got a point guard who can facilitate that offense. Now the other rumor was Westbrook either to the Clippers or to your beloved Knicks, bro. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't know if I'd want to see him in New York. I mean, I'm sure he can play there.
This guy, hey, you know what? Cut the break. Westbrook, to my opinion, is a very overrated point guard. As I was reflecting about Russell Westbrook going to the Clippers, he does not make that team better. He does not make the only way that Russell Westbrook will be successful is if you build the whole team around him with nothing but shooters, and he does what he did at OKC. But that only means that only translates to a first round exit. I don't see him going to any team and making that team better. He plays aggressive. He's very athletic, but he can't shoot to save his life. And I know this is going to sound weird, but I think you'll understand what I'm saying. Not all assists are created equal, right? Like he gets a lot of assists, but those assists aren't creating plays for guys to get open and to, allow them to free open jump shots. So it's not like a Rondo or, the Chris Pauls when they make assists, you know that the team is flowing and they're creating for their teammates. And so I don't know, man, that I wouldn't touch Westbrook with a 10-foot pole. I just don't see him as a difference maker. And if he goes to Clippers, they got a point guard, but I never considered Russell Westbrook a point guard. But it will be an interesting fit for the Knicks. I know the Knicks want to get a point guard. I know that Chris Paul has been rumored to go there before. But yeah, what are your thoughts about that? Westbrook to either the Clippers or New York?
I agree with you. I don't think he makes the Clippers better. I don't think he makes the Knicks better. I don't think he makes any team better, to be honest. He ran KD out of OKC, and he didn't make OKC better when he left. I think they were a 4th seed when he averaged a triple-double. Ran Paul George out of OKC as well. I think he's just a very difficult guard to play with. He is an outstanding player, probably one of the most athletic point guards or even players in the NBA. But
he's fun to watch. But I just don't know how you can build a team that complements outside of just surrounding him with a bunch of shooters. But then come crunch time, right? You want him taking the last shot?
No, I wouldn't put the ball in his hand.
To make the right play. I don't know. I'm not excited. I know Houston Rockets, they look like they might blow up that whole team. I know Stephen A made, talks about, having James Harden go to Philly, which would be interesting. I like James Harden, but again, everything has to run through him. Do you trade a Ben Simmons for James Harden?
Yeah, you would have to. You have to trade a star for a star.
Yeah, then Westbrook definitely has to go. Then you can't have 2 guys who can't shoot. But nonetheless, exactly. I'm not excited about that rumor mill. And he gets paid way too much. He's getting older, and he hasn't developed a jump shot. So I wouldn't touch Russell Westbrook. At the end of the day, so yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. But this off season is going to be exciting to see how these teams who have taken the long layoff really is going to respond. I know for me, being a Bulls fan, that's why I'm, showing off my hat right now, with the hire of our new coach, Billy Donovan. And, so what can he do with that young talent? I know you being a Knicks fan, they hired Tom Thibodeau. Does he have the
and I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Does he have the roster that's going to buy in to be a really grinded out defensive solid team? Sometimes he holds a little too much loyalty to older guys that he's comfortable with. and plays them and doesn't know how to develop young talent. That's not his gift. And I'm saying this because, I'm a Bulls fan. And so
of course.
He rode our star players to the ground. So I'll be curious, but this offseason, this is what I expect: a big trade from Milwaukee, as well as, just a big trade from Milwaukee. I think they're going to make a push to try to get the second solidified star. But this offseason is going to be, I think Lakers are going to kind of take the foot off the gas. They won their championship. I don't think they're going to have anything to prove in that regard. But as you said, it starts off with the NBA draft, man. So we'll see what happens after the draft, after draft night, if there's going to be any trades. And of course, bench warmers will come back, on our next episode to discuss what we saw in NBA draft night. But the expectations of the 2022 season, in my opinion, the teams that have the most to prove are the Brooklyn Nets and the Milwaukee Bucks from the East, and the Clippers, as well as Denver from the West. Those are the two teams I believe need to make a.
So Lo, who wins the NBA championship right now? Call it
next year. Oh, yep. Man, who wins the NBA championship next year? Clippers. Y'all gonna shoot me?
Okay.
What? Clippers. Here's why. Less is more. And I believe Ty Lue is a better coach for that team. Chauncey Billups coming in, being being another hard-nosed type guy, accountability type. He was like that. He was like that as a point guard, right? In Detroit, that that drove that Detroit team to make the 5 Eastern Conference championships and won a championship. So I think they make a trade. If they can get a point guard, a Rondo, for instance, I think the Clippers have the best chance to win an NBA championship. Brooklyn, I give them 2 years before they make it. And I think you will probably see, depending if they make a trade, Milwaukee making it to the Eastern Conference, at least to the Western Conference, to the NBA Finals. Let me say that. But it's so early to predict. You know what I mean? Because you put me on the spot. Denver.
I put you on the spot. I'm calling the Bucs. I'm calling Milwaukee.
Huh?
I'm calling Milwaukee. I think they're going to be the champs. I think Giannis is going to come back hungry, better, shoot the ball better. I think Milwaukee's going to have a better system. And to your point about making a trade, I think they are going to find someone that complements Giannis and Middleton, and then they make that take that step and get that monkey off their back there.
I think Bucks will win it if they can get a trade. If they can get an Oladipo, if they can get a Bradley Beal, is a wrap in the East. Only because I don't see Miami making a push to get a secondary star. They have a solid team. But again, now that they're not in that bubble, how is it going to translate, with this new NBA season that's going to be transpiring? But nonetheless, guys, that is our episode for today for Bench Warmers. Shoot us any questions, any topics that you guys would like to hear. Hit up the comment section. Shoot us a text, and we'll try to address those topics here on our podcast the best way we can. We're going to be bringing in some special guests over the next few weeks, some former coaches, former colleagues of ours that we used to work with, and get their insights and their intel to the topics that you guys send in. But until next time, guys, this is the end of our episode, Bench Warmers. This is your boy Lo.
It's Jono over here, baby. We out. Peace and love.
I'm saying, y'all take care until the next one. Peace.